We're going to be talking about mass mobilization and protest and why that is an important part of any resistance movement. So, one of the things Still Mountain and I have been researching are what it really takes to have an effective movement. So, we've been looking at 15 different movements, and we found that there are 5 core branches that are consistent through all of them. You've got mass mobilization and public protest, information and media strategy, cultural resistance, community building and mutual aid, and economic resistance. They don't always fall in the same order, but you do tend to see a pattern with them. So typically, you see cultural resistance first. So that's like your art, your TV shows, movies, music, all these different things. Like you'll hear the themes of revolutions start popping up, like with the Star Wars series and stuff like that. And then you've got information and media strategy, kind of goes hand in hand at the same time as community building and mutual aid. And then the public protests and mass mobilizations, and then economic resistance. So you're normally not going to get a lot of people willing to go out and strike at the get-go. You need to see some other things take place first. So today we're going to start talking about the mass mobilization and protest. I'm hearing a lot of people say that protests don't work, that it's not effective, and we need to do more than protest. And I agree that it's not going to work if that's our only strategy, but you have to have this. You have to have a large group of people who are willing from the get-go to show resistance. That public show of resistance is so important. And you can jump in anytime still. I'll try not to just
Yeah.
talk the whole time.
So, yeah, it's very important. You need people to see that there are people standing up because the greatest effect that you can have is to let people know that there's something happening at this point. Because without letting people understand that there's something going on, that there are people who feel the way that they do, people stay isolated. The crowd effect of I'm not going to stand up till somebody else does is very real, especially in our culture now. It didn't used to exist the way it does now, but now it's very hard for people to just stand up on their own. They need to be able to see other people doing it.
Yeah, and so we know that nonviolent mass protests are twice as likely to succeed as violent ones. And the reason for that is optics. When you see a bunch of people who are being peaceful or peacefully disruptive and they're met with harsh force, it gets media attention. It gets a reaction. People get mad at the state for enacting that way on a group of people who are just trying to use their rights to speak up for what they know is right. It's harder to make a movement look bad if the movement itself is nonviolent. So, what is it about packing streets, squares, or bridges with bodies that forces power to listen? Well, visibility and solidarity. Disruption is a key part of this. If we're just showing up and staying on the sidewalks, you're not really disrupting much. And a cascade, it has to hit a tipping point to where you're going to see more and more people join in. So, some early examples in 1789, you've got the French Revolution. You've got about 1,000 people who storm Bastille, which is only 0.15% of the population of Paris. So we have this idea, most of us have heard the theory of the 3.5% of a population needs to be willing to enact and show solidarity in order to enact change. And I think it's really important for us to remember that that's not a rule. That is a shorthand way of talking about statistics. It's like if we say that if you flip a coin 100 times, 50% of the time it'll be heads, 50% of the time it'll be tails. That's not going to happen if you sit here and just flip a coin. But if everybody is flipping coins, that's what your average is going to come out to. And that's where we come up with the 3.5%. It, like, looking at these movements, like what you'll hear as we're going through our research, it is not that you have to have 3.5%. Like the salt marches, Gandhi only had 70 people to start with. Like you don't have to have huge numbers.
I want to break in here and say a lot of what happened with the French Revolution came because of America's neutrality after the American Revolution. We were supposed to back the French up on that, and we said no.
Yeah, that's where we have our international solidarity is if you're looking at the 5 things that are consistent through all, your 6, which is consistent in 12 out of the 15, is international solidarity.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
And France stood with us for our revolution, and in turn, we were supposed to stand with them. We had that international solidarity. We had, I'll let you keep going, but yeah, we backed out on them, and that's why everything went the way that it did.
So there's a theory. It's called the threshold theory. Granovetter is the guy's last name who published this. It was in 1978. And it shows that once protest hit a visible tipping point, then participation snowballs. And this isn't a part of our 15 that we researched. I want to add this one in though, so it might end up being 16. Is the Chilean student revolution. I was just learning about this morning. It was super interesting because it's mainly like high school kids. And when we're talking about like mob mentality and hitting this threshold of critical mass, this is a great example. And it's easy to study because all of this information was documented through the education system. So you can look at what days kids miss school and what days organized protests were on. So the way that it kind of played out is that for a student who hadn't been involved in the early protest movements, they had to have 40% of their friend group participating in order to like catalyst them to participate. So if you're looking around at your friends and you're seeing that you've got a couple that aren't participating, don't give up. You keep participating. You invite someone else in. And once you hit that tipping point, it's going to keep building. All right, so the one that I really want to talk about is the salt marches. So to give a little bit of background, we're talking 1930, India. You've got British monopoly on salt, but really, like, India had been colonized by the British. So they do not have independence. They do not have their own government there. They're seeking their independence. And salt was put as a commodity where they could not make profit on it. They had to purchase the salt through the British sellers, and it was heavily taxed. So Gandhi really pushed the movement to pick one specific symbol, which was salt, because everybody needed it to kind of organize around. And I think that's something that's really missing from our protests now. Is we're so scattered. It's like, you've got the No King's Day, you've got this, you've got all these different messaging on signs. And we've got to pick one symbol that we can kind of catalyst around in order to unite. So when Gandhi began, there were 78 followers who started with him. He went on, I'm trying to remember how long the march is. It was like 240 something miles. By the time he reached the end of the march, it had grown to thousands, and it sparked boycotts all across India. And
Yep.
millions ended up participating.
And the crazy thing about it is that it was Like the salt was just like you said, the salt was the catalyst. It was the East India Trading Company that they were trying to get out from under because East India Trading Company had a stranglehold on the Indian government. Nothing happened in India that the East India Trading Company through Great Britain said, yeah, we could do that, or no, we're not going to do that. So a lot of what Gandhi was trying to do was get people to focus on just one small thing. Like in America with the revolution, it was the Tea Party that sparked everything off. With the salt marches, it was the salt. It was just that one little catalyst. And we don't have that. Like she was saying, we're just so broad. The message is so broad. We don't have our salt yet. We don't have our tea yet. We need that.
Yeah, like we have this idea of coming out and saying like fighting fascism and no kings here and we deserve our rights and due process for all. But all of these things are true, but we don't have a symbol. And I don't have a suggestion on what that symbol is. Like I don't know, but we need to figure that out. We as a collective need to figure that out.
Mhm. Yep. And the main thing behind that is we don't need to have like everybody saying the same thing. We just need everybody unified behind the same thing. There was I think it was like 1% of the population that actually participated in India, and it at least raised eyebrows and brought attention. And one of the things that we need is to bring attention, and we're losing more attention than anything because of the broad strokes, because of the we don't want kings here. We're ending fascism. Da, 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 da. It's hard for international communities to get behind any kind of message that we're delivering because the world's looking at America right now to see how we're going to handle the situation we're in. Just like back in the American Revolution and the French Revolution. The French Revolution was very much like, okay, America succeeded. We're going to do it now because we've got the backing of America. The world looks to America. Even though we are seen as unreliable right now on the world stage and losing stance, the world still looks to America because America has had the longest running established successful system outside of England, and they want to see what we're going to do to create change to make things better and to try to they look to the people of America to know what they're supposed to do next with their government.
Yeah, and like it's not coming from a point of American exceptionalism and when we're talking about this. Like
Mm-mm.
we know that I mean the majority of the revolutions we're looking at, thank you, are coming from outside of America. And we have a long history of looking to other cultures to learn how they have resisted. And we need to keep doing that. But, and also, right now, we are leading in this push because it is our president who is on a global level creating such disruption. And so it is our job to handle our business here.
Yep. And one of the key takeaways from this is, America is not exceptional, but we are on the public stage. We are the public police, and the world is going to follow as best they can in our footsteps. So the more that we stand up and the more that we build that solidarity in the world itself, the more that we have a chance of success.
Okay, so we can talk about. Do you want to go ahead and move into modern steps and action steps, or you want to go to questions now?
Well, I wanted to ask you some questions. So, in protest, like what is that moment that where is that moment that happens where you know it's actually doing something? Is it in the building of the crowd? Is it, what lets you know that it's actually doing something?
Okay, so I love this question. I think that I can tell
Hold
that.
on, one question, or one moment. Hey, Cindy, we're not wrong. We love America. If you've got a problem with this, why don't you leave our live? Or you can listen to what we've got to say and understand that you're working too hard for your day-to-day life and things need to change. This isn't partisan. This isn't anything about hating America. I love my country, but I hate my government. And what my government does to people overall is not something I'm okay with. I love my country, but I hate my government. And what my government does to people overall is not something I'm okay with. And so in this, standing up and saying, I will no longer take it. If you've got a problem with that, that's pretty unpatriotic, because that's one of the things that we are supposed to do as American citizens is say, I'm not happy with my government. I'm raising my grievances. And if they refuse to listen, then I'm going to raise my voice louder with everybody else who
Yep.
agrees with me.
We are exercising our rights. So, one of the ways that I can tell that a protest is working is when there's genuine disruption. I think that a protest where it's not disrupting anything is more of a parade. And that's not what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for a parade, a barbecue, or a community gathering. Those are all great. They can be a lot of fun. It can help you build community. But when people can't get to work, when you can't go out on a weekend and shop, when you can't cross an interstate, that's when I know that it's working. You have to inconvenience the people who are not inconvenienced yet.
Yeah, and also you have to show people that they are inconvenienced, that like that's that raising the voice so that people can hear you, to know that they're not alone in their inconvenience and their discomfort and then their dissatisfaction, so that they can say, hey, you know what, I can join with this. I want to make my voice heard too, how dissatisfied, how uncomfortable, how horrible I feel like this situation is.
Yeah, that's like what we were talking about with the critical mass. When you start kind of snowballing, when you have your protests when they're scheduled at regular times. So like I ended up at this protest in Amsterdam, and I was there as a tourist, just visiting friends in Germany, and we decided to take a road trip and stop in Amsterdam and didn't realize they had a protest happening. And we could not participate in the tourist economy because the protest was so large. And this was like the sixth one that they had scheduled. And it started really small. Just a few, like, it was kind of that parade feel, just a little bit of people out. But after they were doing it every other Saturday. So by the time we were there, like, we literally could not fit our body on the street. You couldn't go into stores. It was so loud. You couldn't talk, you couldn't sleep, you couldn't shop. Like, that was effective. It shut down the economy. And we're looking for those moments of cascade and building. We have to have regularly sustained, scheduled movements.
Yep. All right. So is there a feeling when the calm leaves, whenever people start actually uniting as a voice and building the bravado, is there something that you can feel that helps move it forward and gain even more momentum in that moment?
Yes. So I want to give a little bit of context for this. I've protested in a bunch of different situations. So, like the huge one in Amsterdam, but where I live, like where I'm actually at, is very rural, very small. So, a protest here in my hometown is probably going to look like 5 people standing outside. But where I usually go to protest is Athens. And so it's a university town. And so you're going to have a lot of students. And it's not huge, not like Atlanta where it gets like big and crazy. But what you kind of notice is at first, people are kind of figuring it out. It's this like finding your spot. Where are you going to stand? And like people almost are a little uncomfortable to talk to each other. And then when the chants start, that's when you start to feel that unity. Like when you start going up and down, and I love leading chants. It's one of my favorite things. It's like yelling out like, what does democracy look like? And everybody yells back, this is what democracy looks like. And you get that unity all together. And you can feel it. You feel that build happening like this it's like at a concert when it's you can feel the crowd excited because their favorite song's about to come on. And one thing I notice with a lot of these organizers and people who are putting the protests together, they limit the amount of time for that. And then they want to shift it to a speaker. So they'll let the crowd build, and then everybody moves over to a stage. And it kind of dies that feeling down, it tampers it out. We're not going to be as disruptive. You've got to be quiet, you got to listen. And that's normally when you have counter protests start. When you've got
Mhm.
someone on the corner yelling at you and booing and trying to like talk louder than the speaker. And that's where I usually jump in. Like, that's my favorite time to just stand in front and just scream or sing or something to drown that out. And when you get a group of people with you who are doing that, you'll feel that rise again. And this is where I think we have an issue right now with our protest is our organizers do not want to allow that feeling to build. They don't actually want disruption. They want to kind of have it scheduled, have a certain time where you get out, you have your speakers, you've got singers, and then they call an end to it and everybody goes home. And
It's a comfort feeling.
what was that?
It's a comfort feeling. It's to make people feel comfortable. And it's almost as if like, uh, well, counter protests are one thing, but whenever you sit there and try to make people feel comfortable and feel like they've achieved something, then you're not actually working towards your cause. You're actually just diminishing it. You're stopping people from being uncomfortable long enough to go ahead and continue on building that momentum, building that breath of change, building the chance to make something different. You become complacent when you're comfortable.
Yeah, I think that these moments act as a pressure release. And I think that the criticism for protests where people are saying like it's not making a difference, it's not doing any good, a lot of times comes from that idea of we're just getting together and comforting ourselves. It's a pressure release for our rage. It allows us to feel heard without enacting any real change. And I think that we as participants or organizers, we have to stop allowing that. Like, you have a right to gather. You have a right to protest. You do not have to stay. You don't have to leave when the organizers say it's over. Like, you don't.
Mhm.
And I think I participated in a lot of the Black Lives Matter protest, which is the largest protest movement in the United States. And I know there's a lot of discourse about how organizers handled money and things like this. But what I also know is we had 15 million people protesting, and that had nothing to do with money. That had to do with people tired of seeing other people suffer, people tired of seeing their families suffer and being treated in unfair ways. And I think that's what we have to do now. We have to say this isn't just about money. This isn't just about like my right to speak up. This is about people suffering. This is about our country changing. And we're not here just for a scheduled protest. We are here to disrupt until you listen to us.
So I got a question, kind of rolling back a little bit. Wouldn't the media kind of want to show that these things are happening, that not just the protests and the message, but the like it seems like whenever I look at the protests, I see not really what's going on, but more of like this is what we need to do to our these people are causing a disruption, blah 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 blah. Here's the counter protesters talking about what they've got to say. It wouldn't the media want the message of the protesters to be heard?
So I think this is going to be a lot of fun when we do our segment on information and media strategy. It's corporate media that is controlling the narrative. So they're putting out what they're told to put out. And then you do see independent journalists and you see like people who are still within that system but refuse to cooperate. They're going to continue to speak out. You have a message that people don't want to hear, don't want you to hear. So the best way to do that is to only offer a tiny bit. Because if the information's totally suppressed, then that's going to mean that people are going to keep looking for it. So you're going to see that on all media, not just happening on CNN or Fox, but you're also seeing it here on this platform. You see situations where they are only going to give you a teeny tiny bit, because if they completely suppress it, they know we're going to search for more. But if they show you just a little bit, but don't let the real message be shown, they only interview one or two people and then they turn and show a broken window, or they show counter protesters, or they're just showing a Humvee. You're not actually having an opportunity to get your message out. And that is intentional. There is a strategic suppression. They're not going to completely silence you. And we see this all the time. Like if you think back to 19, I think it was like 28, Germany, they started creating new radios that was like pushed out by like, I think 32 is when they had like fully released them. And it was a way in which that they like made them real cheap and affordable so everybody could get it, and they felt like you were connected. You felt like you were getting the information, but you're only getting a curated form of propaganda. And that's what's happening now. We are oversaturated with places to look for information, but they're only giving you curated propaganda. So if you want to know what's really happening, like I follow lives all the time. Like I'm watching lives from LA, I'm watching people in DC, because I want to see on the screen from someone who is there what is actually happening. And it is fascinating to me, excuse me, when I'm watching a live on TikTok and then I pull up the news feed on my TV too. So you can watch like what NBC's putting out, and then you see what Duran has on actually happening on his screen, and it's crazy because like I remember seeing, this was a couple months ago in LA. They were saying how like crazy and how it was a riot and the protesters were making it unsafe, and there's all this kind of stuff, and there's all these people with like fireworks coming in, and they pan over to just kind of quickly show, and then they like scooch back over to the cops. Well, I'm watching a live streamer on that same corner, and I look, and the people that they were trying to say were like revolting with fireworks were literally like three couples holding hands going for a walk. Like it, there is such a level of propaganda. We have to have on the ground reporting. We have to follow them and listen to them.
What she's saying is exactly correct. You're never going to get any full picture from any of the mainstream media sources. You have to go and dig for information yourself. All of the mainstream media is owned by the same institutional people who have control over the messaging that you do or do not see. They control what you get. And so whenever you look on Fox News and they're showing the protests and they're showing how violent it is, you know what that's made to do? That's made to make people who watch Fox News turn against it and say, this is horrible. They're doing bad stuff and we need to stop them. And to do that's made to make people who watch Fox News turn against it and say, this is horrible. They're doing bad stuff and we need to stop them and we need to make sure, which takes away your right to protest. It also limits your First Amendment rights. In order to stop or in order to violate your rights, they don't need to necessarily go ahead and keep you from doing it. They just need to put a chill on it. And that's what we're seeing is that we're being a chill put on our rights by these mega corporations that own our media companies, that own the newspapers, that own the ways that we intake information. Whenever you start going to independent sources that are there on the ground giving you pictures of what you can see right now, it starts to destroy the narrative. That's why you see a lot of censorship and people having to call protests different things. So that way they don't have to deal with the media censorship that goes everywhere. It spreads even here to TikTok. The revolution exists in our hearts, and we need to take that everywhere.
And we're going to
To
be wherever the people are. We're not making a decision of saying we're going to stay out of here because the government has their hands in it. The government has their hands everywhere. We already know that we're being monitored. We already know we're being censored. So we're going to use our voice wherever people need to hear it. So if you have a spot that you're at and we're not there, let us know. We're going to try to cross promote on everything.
Yep. And I really want to point out to you guys that the biggest issue that we face nowadays is them trying to turn us against each other. But if we can sit here and dissolve the lines that keep us separated, then we can look at the person next to us and say, "No, I know you're not doing that because I can see you." We can look at the person over here and say, "No, I know you're not doing that because I see you." And then the media has to come up with all new ways of propaganda to turn us against each other. Everything has to change once we unite. And if it doesn't change in a positive way, it's just changing in a way that exposes them.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I want every single one of you to move forward with the sense of you bleed, you're broke, which broke to me is less than $1 billion in this mentionings. You bleed, you're broke, your family. Because all of the rest of it, these major corporations, they don't give a shit about you. What I said earlier about the whole thing about they're not going to give you a gold star for standing against your fellow man. They're not going to give you a pat on the back. They're not. They don't know you. They don't even know you when you work for them. They don't care. They don't pay you a living wage. They don't help you through your hard times. They don't make sure that you're okay. So help your fellow man by putting away the tools of oppression, the fighting, the arguing, the separating people through any lines of division possible, sex, race, creed, religion, all of it. Get rid of it all and say, I see you. You are a person. Let's stand together.
Yes.
Because they can't nobody do nothing against us if we're all standing together.
And don't let
Not
them
that we
scare
won't see.
you.
Mm-mm.
Like when we stand united, we have numbers. We have strength. And so like there are bad things that can happen when you stand up against the state. And that is expected. And there are those of us who are willing to put ourselves on the front line. There's a lot of us. Is why do mass mobilization and protest work? Because it shows solidarity. It can reach a point of critical mass. And once you reach that, you create a snowball effect. Do you want to tag back on any of this stuff real quick?
Uh, yeah, it's important that we show solidarity because people don't speak up without seeing each other. We've become very crowd-minded, and that we need a crowd to be a part of in order to do the things that we're supposed to do. There was a show that pointed out this greatly in just everyday life where they would have the whole system set up where a random person would come in and there would be a person going through hard times in front of them, and you would see some people stand up, but overall there was a lot of stuff that they weren't able to show because people would just kind of sink back and let it just happen because the crowd was against them if they stood up. And so you need to see that you have people to stand up with, and you need to be able to feel that in your heart. You need to feel that somebody is saying the same things that you are and feels the same way that you do, so that you have your community. You have your people that you can stand up with and say, "No, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not okay with this."
And it doesn't always have to be, actually, it's never the critical mass all at once. So, one of the examples we looked at was the Salt March, which helped in the endeavor for Indian independence in 1930. Gandhi started a 200 and something mile march, and he started with 78 people, and it ended up growing to thousands of people on the march with him, and then millions indirectly participated, which equaled about 1% of the population. So the 3.5% is not a hard rule. You do not have to have that. That is just an average, because like if you look at the Polish solidarity movement, which is interesting, we'll talk about them in the economics resistance segment more, because they actually started with a strike. Normally economic resistance does not come first, but theirs did. So they ended up having about 20% of their population participate. So that's where you get that 3.5%. That is like the average when you put them all together.
And just to go touch back on the media, on the protest stuff, if the media is talking against something, that should be a red flag of why you should look into it more. We're going to touch on it when we go into media strategies, but anytime the news tells you not to like something, do your own research and find out more about it. Because there's reasons why they're telling you that. It's not for your benefit. None of what they tell you is for your benefit. If it was for your benefit, we would all have homes. We would all be okay.
Here. So when we had the No Kings protest, we ended up having close to 1% of the population participate. You're right. I think we are at the 3.5% of people indirectly participating, because 3.5% does not mean at a protest. That just means solidarity, showing support for them. So I do want to go into just a couple other like scenarios. In Selma, 1965, you had 25,000 marchers. So that was only 0.013% of the US population participated in that. But the national spotlight forces the Voting Rights Act. And why that ended up getting such of a spotlight is because they took nonviolent action. They were peacefully protesting, they were boycotting, they were marching, they were doing sit ins, and they were met with resistance, with force, with brutality. And when the media showed that, when people who were there took pictures, that's when people became outraged. The same thing happened at Stonewall. You had people who were repeatedly taken advantage of and treated horribly by the cops. And you had one journalist, one guy, he wasn't even really a journalist, Craig Roberts. He was walking home from, I think, a bingo night and stopped and grabbed his camera and took pictures. And the pictures from that is what pushed to where we have Pride now. Like, it doesn't take everybody on the street at the same time. It takes attention being drawn to it. So that's something that I hear a lot of people asking, how can I participate if I don't have the ability to? If I'm differently abled, how can I do this? So there's a lot of ways. One of the things that I've seen that I've done when I can't go out to protest, like, I've seen videos coming in on TikTok from protesters in LA, and then I see like them being treated badly and cops like hitting them and stuff. So if you see that creator and you've seen a video of them, tag them. Tell them, here is your evidence. This is how you can help. You are providing documentation. If you can't go to the protest, you can be a person who holds the contact information. If your friend doesn't show up at the end of the night, who do you call? What's your list? Where are the numbers? What's the bail fund? That is so needed. I can
Yep.
tell I'm
And
getting riled up. I'm like, I need to take a deep breath.
yeah, yeah, and like she says, you don't, there's ways to participate beyond just the protest itself. Like she was saying, you can do so much just by giving information. You, we see people that are outside of the protests that are showing us what's really going on in these protests because they're there and they're willing to say that the media narrative is wrong. And that is so much. There's so much. I mean, we're seeing beyond the protests, what's going on in DC. We're seeing people on the ground actually showing us more than the news is. And that's important. Guess what we live in? We live in a time where history isn't written by the victors anymore. There is a huge archive of it that's written by us.
Yeah.
And so we have the chance to go in and say to these people, hey, look, this is how we want things. And whenever it comes to protests, you can be such a big message just by telling people what's really going on. But also, like, you can point to other things too. And like she said, be the person who holds the contact information at the end of the night so that if everybody doesn't meet up, if you don't all reconvene, you can sit there and start getting in touch with people. Hey, this person didn't show up. Start looking for them in the hospital. Start looking for them in the jails. Da 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 da. Start making people be known. If people are missing, let it be known. Spread it over social media. Tell their family, tell everybody, and make the media answer why they're not there. Make the government tell you why they didn't show up. Make the government give you a reason, and they may be right or they may be wrong. But without making them do that, you don't get that chance to show them, to show everybody whether they're right or wrong. So by all means, hold people accountable, hold your government accountable, and hold the people beside you accountable too. If they are working against the message that movement, that protest is trying to do, guess what you might possibly have there? A bad actor.
Oh yeah.
And so that's another thing is be that eyes and ears, the vigilance that says, no, this person isn't a part of us. What this person's doing is not what we're doing. Get them away, isolate them, get them out of it because you are your brother's keeper in a protest. The police are not there for you. Well, they're there for you, but they're there for you to work against you.
Yeah.
And so, in that, we have to be our brother's keepers in these things. Activism isn't just making signs and holding. And so, in that, we have to be our brother's keepers in these things. Activism isn't just making signs and holding them up and screaming, all of that. It is silently recording and documenting. It is forcing the issues to come forth. It is making sure that people understand when bad actors are present in order to separate and isolate them so that their message doesn't get drowned out behind that bad actor and what that bad actor is doing. What we have to do in protest is work together and be family.
And like that's not a conspiracy theory. We have historic evidence of this. We know for a fact that our government intentionally sends federal agents and local police in disguise into protest. It is you well, at least a couple weeks ago, it was on the National Archives. If it's not there now, it'll be on the Wayback Machines of this. We know it. They admitted it. They do this all the time. I do want to tag back and talk about a movement, the Occupy Wall Street in 2011. And a lot of people say that this was an unsuccessful movement, but I think that we have to realize this led to a global movement that changed the conversation around the dinner table. It did not change Wall Street. It has not changed our everyday life, but it has changed the way we talk about it. Now we have this discourse of the 99%. We understand this top versus bottom. And that's something that wasn't drawn to the forefront pre 2011. So if don't lose hope when you look at movements like that and you feel like, oh, well, nothing really changed. Yes, our conversation changed. And that is crucial. That's one thing that Still and I are here doing. We're here to have conversation, to increase dialogue. We want to bring attention and awareness and create a space where we can have discourse around it. Because if we don't, we're not going to know what language to use. We need unified language.
A lot of what we face today is a lot of people saying that it can't work. We see a lot of hate on us because the message right now is to dehumanize and segregate. And the only reason that that's happening so quickly right now is because of how dangerous the spreading of the "we are 99% became. I remember seeing them bulldozing the Occupy Wall Street uh, encampment
Yes.
and getting rid of it, and what that meant to me, and that these people were doing something that they had to come in and move them and destroy their shit to keep them from continuing. you know so we are so much further because these people gave us something to work with, gave us that base groundwork and showed us, hey, look, yeah, we're 99, we're not 50% of the world.
No.
We're in no way, shape, or form are we marginalized any other than 1% and 99%. And if we choose not to see it that way, then we're not part of the 99%. We're part of that 1%. We're helping that 1% and we're putting the 99% down.
So let's talk briefly about the Polish solidarity movement. We'll get into this more with economic resistance as well, which we're doing on Wednesday. So Polish solidarity started in 1980, and they had a lot of people participate. They had 10 million, which was 29% of Poland, and it forced the regime to renegotiate with the people. That one was primarily labor based, and it really set a precedent on how modern revolutions can take place with a unionized style workforce, because it wasn't specifically one union, there was a bunch of different ones. And then the other one I wanted to touch on right now is the Sudanese Revolution, which was 2018 to 2019. You had millions participate, anywhere between 5 to 10%, depending on when you're looking at it, of Sudan. And that dictator fell after being in power for 30 years. And these are ones that really start with mass mobilization and protest. And there's more we can do. Like, you've got the Russian Revolution, which was bread riots. You've got the Velvet Revolution. There's so many.
Mm-hmm.
So climate
Yep.
strikes, 2019. You've had 7.6 million people worldwide. 0.1% of the global population participated in protest every Friday in 2019. Like,
Yep. So, real quick, I want to segue into knowing what we know right now about protests. Are there any movements that you can see that are actually uh, currently following a structure that has effective protests?
good question. I think that the current movements are missing some elements. Like, I think 5051 has really good reach. They're able to get a lot of people united, but they don't have good, like, dedicated messaging. That's what we were talking about earlier, how we need to have a symbol that we can unite around. We need to have something that we're all standing against. And I don't see that. I think the No King's Day did good of coming up with a symbol and having common messaging, but it's not sustained. So you have to have sustained messaging and protest and action and mass mobilization. That way, if people can't show up one week, they can show up the next. Like, we have to keep this going on a schedule. And I think we're going to start. I feel like I can see the change coming. Like, I know there's a lot of people planning for stuff on September 1st, like Labor Day and stuff. Like, I think so. I think my favorite one to watch right now is how Indivisible is working, because they're really taking a community approach. So you're seeing, like, in my town, we've got a group that protests every single Monday. It's only a few people, but they're there every Monday. And I like this county by county, like, or voting district by voting district. I think it's a good approach. What about you? Do you see any that you think are really working?
It's all so scattered. If like all of us standing up means something, but if we're not actually moving towards the yeah, we're okay, Trisha. If we're not actually moving towards a common goal, we're working against each other, which is exactly what they want from things from times like this, is for protests to counter each other themselves. The signals that are coming from one side will bounce off of the ones from the other and make it to where nobody appreciates what space is there in the middle and wants to occupy it. So if I were to look at anything that really kind of is effective to me, it's the ICE protests, because we're actually getting to see a lot more of the actual rhetoric and not just what's displayed on the media. We're able to see the people in action and why they're acting. and also stand behind them in multiple different ways and support them in different ways. There's a unified message. It's got a lot of reach around the country, and it is essentially like, no, we're not going to let you keep stealing people. That's the one that I see that sticks out to me as the one that's working the best right now.
Yeah, I've noticed watching a lot of the streams and stuff coming in from DC over the last like week, is that they've started doing pots and pans protest. They're showing up at 8 p.m. every night, coming out for 3 minutes and just banging pots and pans. And that makes it very accessible for everyone. Like it's going house by house. Like all you're doing is hanging out your windows, stepping outside, and it's making a difference. So there's pots and pans protests have been used in a bunch of different formats. It's a very good way to communicate. Some of them are pro-Palestinian protests, but like that's just a tactic that's been used for a long time. And so it allows people accessibility. And one of the things that I'm seeing is a unified message coming out of DC right now saying that like we're reclaiming our streets. Get off our streets, give us our streets back, give us our city back. And I think that that's important. Like you see that the locals are saying no.
Yes, there should be a meeting. There should be a joining of the leaders of these movements for them to gather information to work together effectively to create the same end result. I agree with that 100%. They should come together and work things out so that the overlap doesn't happen, the counter messaging doesn't happen, and people aren't turned off to it because they don't understand this from this. But people are like, oh, I understand this way more than I understand this, so I'm willing to do this and go with that.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed while researching is that basically we have to have a spine almost of the resistance. So like if you imagine like the vertebrae, like it doesn't have to be, it's not one solid column. Like you're each going to operate individually, be able to move on your own way, but you're unified, you're united. And so, I mean, really we need like 12 to 20 leaders to come together and form that spine so that we can move and bend and stand up straight. And that's what I'm really looking for as a signal that like we've got a hold on this and we're going to be able to enact change. I'm not looking for one leader to step up or one person to take the reins, one revolutionary speaker. I'm looking for a coalition.
Yep. And so I want to kind of slip back into the No Kings protests, and what they're doing is it's got a lot of good markers to help it, but it's missing the, like you said, the sustainability. Um, let's say Trump's out of office, where does that go from there? You know, that is one of the things that hurts movements, is that you base it on something so short-sighted that once you achieve your goal, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah. I think that that's a huge issue is that a lot of people are taking this approach of just being anti-Trump. And it's so much deeper than that. Like Trump is a symptom of what the problem is. Like it is,
Exactly what I was about to say.
yeah, like it's just a symptom. If it's not him, it'll be someone else. Exactly. So one of the things, just to kind of tie back into what we've been saying, is that protests work whenever you have mass mobilization, whenever you need to have that hit that critical mass where you have like 40% of the people that you know participating, then you're more likely to participate. The 3.5% rule is not a rule, that's an average. We have a lot of people who are, we can look at a lot of different movements who had less than 1% of their population. A lot of them were 0.013% that enacted change. And then you see others that had 25%. And that's how you got that average. So action steps, show up. Even small bodies add up. The more that you're showing up, the more you're encouraging people around you to show up. Support protest logistics. So you can bring water, masks. Thank you. We need street medics. We need people with signs. We need people with blow like the horns so that you can lead a chant. And that can be accessible. It doesn't have to be like we're not talking about just able-bodied people on the streets. You can support logistics by running the website. You can support by being the safety person someone can call at the end of the line. Appreciate it. It's like you can be the person who people check in with. You can be the one who starts the phone tree. If your friend doesn't show up, who do you call to get to go check on their pets? Like just because you're immune compromised or you can't get on the streets, there are so many different roles that you can play. So many different. Are you watching kids? So many ways. Just spreading information, documenting what you're seeing, sharing that, tagging people that you see that are looking for info. Okay, and then document safely. So you can use encrypted uploads, you can blur faces. If you're concerned about your identity when you're going to a protest, cover your face because there are people who are recording. I record when I go to protest. I go live because I want to be able to document this. I think it's important. So if you don't want that, take steps to prevent it. And then we have to link to demands. Make sure that the protests have a clear ask. We've got to get united. We have to be very clear on what we want. Because if we're continue to show up and we're scattered like this, our message gets lost.
Yep. And that's that unification of message. Like right now, like we keep saying, everybody's scattered right now. We're all one of the biggest problems that I have with a lot of the movements that say that they're not partisan is that they're not giving the information so that are joining the movement so that they can stop being partisan and start spreading the message of that movement correctly. If you're going to say you're nonpartisan, then you have to condone behaviors that move towards that nonpartisan behavior. If you've got members that are actively going out and seeking arguments with right wing or left wing or any of it, if they're actively going out and seeking arguments, they're working against your cause. And so, it's very important that you get everybody on that same page. You unify the message and get everybody doing the same thing. You have bad actors that don't even know they're bad actors if they don't have the information to keep them from being so.